Hi everyone, I'm Cassandra Donnelly from Creative Passages, and I just wanted to speak a little bit about some cautions that you might have to keep in mind when creating your grief journal. First of all, I want to say that this is not a replacement for therapy, and if you're unstable right now, this is not going to make you stable suddenly. But it is going to help you work through your feelings. So the first thing I want to say though is that if you're suicidal or homicidal or in danger of hurting yourself or hurting somebody else, or you're not able to take care of yourself or function where you can go to work or get out of bed or take care of your family, if you're struggling to function to that extent, then it's time to call 911 or check yourself into a hospital. Okay, so I just wanted to put that out there because there might be a lot of different people at different levels of functioning watching this video. So I want to put that number one. If you're unsafe, okay, if you're suicidal, homicidal, danger to yourself or others, are not able to function, then please call 911 or suicide hotline and get some help. Okay, number two, maybe you're not quite at that level, but maybe let's say you're struggling with urges to self-harm, but you don't really want to kill yourself, or you still want to live, but let's say you're struggling with destructive urges, or maybe you're struggling to want to turn to drugs or alcohol. Let's say you're an addict. I find it's not helpful to make art about those urges. Like if you have an urge to cut, then to draw cutting or blood and things like that is not productive. Based on my working with a lot of people that do struggle with those urges, I just know that it's not productive because it could then make those urges that much stronger. Instead, it's better to make art about the feelings underneath the urges. Maybe a lot of people cut because they want to express that pain. What does that pain feel like? If it had a color or shape or a form, what would that look like? How much room would it take on your paper? It's better to do that than to draw the urges. And again, you don't want to be too graphic in your art, because I think sometimes that can be triggering to you or to somebody else, and you really don't want to trigger yourself. Now when it comes to trauma, this could be a little bit tricky because maybe you want to depict an actual memory. So I would say that be really cautious with that. I'm not saying that it couldn't be helpful, but if you were to, let's say, try to do an actual memory, then make sure that you're stable enough before you embark on actually trying to capture a literal memory, because you don't want to trigger yourself to the point where you're becoming unsafe. That's the most important thing. Now, if you think you can process that memory in a safe way, and you've already have a lot of healing under your belt, then, and you feel like you can't work through the memory any other way, then maybe you can draw something like that. But if you're very vulnerable, you haven't had very much therapy, then be careful with drawing actual memories, because it could trigger you. And I wouldn't suggest that unless you're actually working with a therapist who you can process it with. Now when I worked through my trauma, I did face my memories. The only way I could reach my memories was abreaction, so I would allow myself to have an abreaction in therapy. So I would literally reenact that memory in therapy, but it was willful and purposeful. That was sort of similar to if I would make art about it. And I haven't actually made art about particular memories yet. I make art usually about the feelings. So I'm not saying that that couldn't be something that is helpful, but I just know that if you want to go that route, I'd just be extra careful. I've worked with a lot of people, and I think that based on my work with most people that are in vulnerable places that could, regress you to a point where you're not safe. So maybe think about the feelings, attached to the memory or to the loss versus things that are going to trigger you. So just be careful with that and know where you are in your own recovery, in your own treatment. Where are you? And don't try to push yourself in a place that's going to destabilize you, because the whole purpose of doing the grief journal or the trauma journal, whatever you're working on, is to stabilize you, not to not to destabilize you. Okay, so that's another caution. Now you may decide that you do need some help. This will work best, if the grief journal, trauma journal will work best if you either reached a point of recovery where you're functioning pretty well and you don't really need a therapist, and you're just kind of going a little bit deeper into your own feelings, your own grief, or B, you're working with the therapist. So I want to say a few notes about working with the therapist. Of course, you may be in a situation where you don't have a lot of choice about who you're going to see. Sometimes, if you don't have a lot of finances and you're working with maybe a community services board, you're limited to just those therapists that they choose for you. But let's say you do have some choice about the type of therapist you're going to see. Well, start with, first of all, a therapist who takes your insurance. Okay, because it's not helpful to spend hours just finding the best therapist to only find out that they don't take your insurance. So start with that, because that's the most important. They have to take your insurance, unless you're really rich and it doesn't matter. But even if you're rich, you might want to save some money. So find one that takes your insurance. You can do like a Google search, or like, let's say you take Anthem insurance, or that's the insurance you use. Find therapists that take Anthem, and then from there you want to find a therapist that will specialize in the issues that you're going through. If you're depressed or you have PTSD and grief, maybe find a therapist that specializes in treating those issues. Also, read the reviews of the therapist. So some therapists maybe have good reviews, some maybe don't. So read the reviews. Ultimately know that you're maybe going to click better with some therapists than others. But just because you're uncomfortable doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a good therapist, because therapy is going to be a little bit uncomfortable because it's pushing you to experience and work through, painful emotions, and to find new habits, healthier habits than the ones you've engaged in before. So that might be a little bit uncomfortable. So just don't discount a therapist just because they're pushing you a little bit. However, another thing I do need to say, though, that a therapist should not push you so much that you destabilize. Okay, they should be really trained to know how much to push you in a gentle way that's going to stabilize you. And especially when you're working with trauma, that's important. I once had a therapist that pushed me a little bit too hard in my trauma, and it did I wasn't unstable to the point that I need to be hospitalized, but it interfered in my ability to get the things done that I needed to in my life. And so there needs to be a good balance between the work that you do, like working through the memories or the loss or the feelings, and then also being stable and utilizing coping skills and things like that. There needs to be a good balance. There needs to be that safety first before you can even start approaching painful memories. That's why I'm saying with this grief journal, trauma journal, you need to be safe enough before you can even really dive deep into those emotions. And a therapist should know that as well. And also pray about what type of therapist you should choose. God could use a secular therapist just as much as a Christian therapist. But some therapists maybe can help you more than others, and then some maybe, possibly, if you hadn't prayed on it, could present a conflict to you. So try to find one that's complementary to your beliefs, especially if they're secular. Most therapists are trained to honor whatever you believe, and to try to incorporate that. But of course, the more they embrace what you believe, probably the more helpful they can be. I would think. So those are just some cautions that I wanted to put out there. Also, I wanted to say, although we're trying to work through our pain and we're trying to work through our grief, we don't want to get lost in it. We don't want to work on our pain and our grief to such a level that we're so lost that we can't find our way out of it. So this is not to wallow in grief or self-pity, but this is to help you process your emotions. And what I recommend is that you also make art or make pages that will bring you hope. To maybe you can incorporate Bible scriptures that will bring hope to you. Maybe you can make art about some reminders of things, goals that you want in your life. Maybe you can incorporate things that comfort you. So it's good to have a balance between the pain and then the hope and the future, things that you want. It's good to have that kind of balance, so that you're not just feeling hopeless. We don't want you to feel hopeless. We want you to feel hopeful. We want you to work through your emotions in a way that you can attend to your life better, and so you have more hope in your life, and so these emotions aren't causing such agitation or such distraction in your life that you're not able to enjoy it. So that's the whole purpose of it. So again, if you're feeling unsafe and you're a danger to yourself or others, please call 911, get some help, or take yourself to the hospital. But otherwise, I recommend you use this journal as a complement to therapy, or as a way to dive a little bit deeper into your own recovery if you're in a stable place. So I wanted to say all those things. Have a blessed day, everybody. Bye.